Aurelia Syeh sat still in the velvet seat of the transport. The cabin looked like a palace, but it felt like a box. The silver dress on her body was soft, yet it cut like wire. It was not hers. None of this was hers. They called the place ahead the outer wing, a school for royal brides, a place of manners and grace. Aurelia knew the truth. It was a prison with warm rugs. Girls arrived proud and loud. After a month, they walked quiet. The ship shook as docking clamps locked. The door slid open with a hiss. Draxian guards marched in with blank eyes and perfect steps. Their armor gleamed under the lights. Aurelia kept her chin high. She remembered the rules. Never stand out. Never break. Never cry. Then she saw him. Not a Draxian. A human. Taller than the rest. Shoulders broad. Armor scuffed from real work. Hair cut short. Eyes storm gray and watchful. They swept the line of brides, past her, then stopped. For one heartbeat, he knew her. He did not turn his head or smile. As he passed close, his breath brushed her cheek. Rel, he murmured, the old nickname, soft as dust. Her heart slammed in her chest. That name had been buried for years. She was a child again, racing through the valley beside a laughing boy. Jonah Hale, her neighbor's son, her friend. Her father had sent him away when they were caught climbing the Ur cranes. She had cried for days and learned never to cry again. Form ranks, barked the Draxian captain. The moment shattered. The human's face went blank again, soldier calm. But Aurelia felt the spark, a spark this place was built to kill. They marched down a long corridor. The floors shone like mirrors. Cameras followed. Matrons with thin smiles and thinner canes drifted beside them. Chin, one said. Smile, ordered another. Aurelia obeyed with a face made of glass. The line of brides waited in the docking hall. Boots thudded. Doors opened and closed. Aurelia watched reflections in the polished wall to see without turning her head. She counted 4 cameras, 2 exits, and the human's shadow when he shifted his weight. Counting made her steadier. Matron Ixa drifted past with a thin tablet. She tapped Aurelia's shoulder. Posture, she said. A spine is a flag. Aurelia lifted her chin and let the words pass like smoke. Around her, the others stared down. Someone sniffled. Someone squeezed a ring as if it were a hand. They moved again, past banners, sealed doors, and a viewing dome where stars pooled like ink. The station felt alive but hushed, like a theater before a show. Aurelia told herself not to hope, yet the small flame in her chest refused to die. Her assigned quarters were too fine. Cushions in the right colors, tea steaming on a tray, and a window that showed stars instead of the bars between. On the wall, rules scrolled in neat letters. Wake, wash, rehearse, repeat. Speak when spoken to. Kneel when told. Forget who you were. She did not forget. She set small traps for fear. Name the floor grid. Name the vent rhythm. Name the guard with the slow left foot. Fear shrank when it had names. Then she turned off the light and listened. Somewhere, a panel clicked as systems cycled. Somewhere, a human heart beat in the same air as hers. Days crawled. Lessons bit deep. Posture, language, the history of men she would never love. Matrons corrected everything. The way she walked, the way she breathed. Aurelia played the doll and gathered keys. Who smiled too much, who listened too little, which door hummed differently. That night, the station creaked as heat cycles changed. Aurelia sat at her desk, repeating the rules, but her mind whispered another voice. A boy's voice. Run before they say stop. A soft sound came at her door. 3 quick taps. A pause. 2 more. Her breath caught. She glanced at the surveillance panel. It was dark, maintenance night. She crossed the room and laid her palm on the seal. The door slid open a hand's width. A toolkit. A plain shirt stretched over a chest built by work. A face older, rougher, and somehow exactly the same. Security maintenance. The human said loudly for the corridor, then softer. May I come in? She opened the door. Jonah stepped inside, the door sliding shut behind him with a soft hiss. For a moment, they only stared at each other. 2 ghosts from different lives, standing in the same air again. He looked different now. The boy who once climbed towers for fun had become a soldier carved from iron. His jaw was sharper, his stance steady, his eyes colder. Yet behind them, Aurelia saw the same warmth that once made her laugh in the rain. And for the first time in years, she felt alive. Is it really you? She whispered. Jonah nodded, setting the toolkit on the table. It's me, Rel. Just a little older, a lot uglier. A small, broken laugh escaped her. You're not ugly. Just human. He grinned, quiet and quick. Still counts as a compliment out here. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken memories. Finally, she asked, how did you find me? I didn't, Jonah said softly. I found the name of a bride from your world. I hoped it was you. Pulled every favor I could to be assigned to this post. He paused, eyes dark. When I saw your name on the list, I knew I couldn't just guard this ship. I had to find a way to get you out. Aurelia's pulse thudded in her ears. No one risked defying the Draxian Empire. Not for love. Not for anything. Do you know what they'll do if they find out? She asked. Yes, he said. That's why we can't let them. She moved closer, the distance between them melting. What happened to you after you left? She asked quietly. My father said you were sent to a mining camp. Jonah chuckled darkly. Close. Military academy on Earth. They break you before they build you. Turns out I was good at surviving. His smile softened. You were the reason I kept going. The words hit harder than any weapon. Aurelia turned away, trying to steady her voice. You shouldn't have come. Too late, he said simply. You were worth it. The silence after that was electric. The hum of the ventilation, the soft pulse of the station's lights, everything faded. When Jonah reached out and brushed his fingers along her sleeve, it wasn't bold or forceful. It was careful, reverent. She didn't pull away. I've missed this, he said quietly. This. Being near someone who remembers who I was before the uniform. Her throat tightened. That boy is still in there somewhere. Maybe. You helped him survive. His voice dropped lower, heavy with meaning. Now let me help you. He explained his plan in sharp, simple words. There was a supply shuttle that came every 2 nights, crewed by old friends from his guard unit. One owed him a favor. The plan was to leave during maintenance hour, when cameras went offline. 2 seats hidden inside a cargo pod bound for the Terran outpost. Freedom, if they made it. Aurelia shook her head. You make it sound easy. Jonah smiled faintly. Nothing's easy for humans. That's why we're good at it. She felt tears rise and forced them back. If they catch you, then I'll give them hell, he said, simple and calm. I didn't come here to die, Rel. I came to finish something we started when we were 12. She frowned, confused. What did we start? He stepped closer, eyes steady on hers. A promise. You said if I ever got lost, you'd find me. This time it's my turn. Aurelia laughed softly, a sound that didn't belong in this place of metal and fear. Jonah Hale, she whispered. You are still impossible. Humans usually are, he replied. It's how we survive. He moved to leave, but she caught his hand. When? 3 nights from now? 2 hours before dawn cycle. Cargo Bay 4. And until then? He looked at her one last time, eyes full of everything he couldn't say. Pretend you never saw me. Then he was gone, a shadow swallowed by the hall. The door closed with a sigh, and the silence that followed felt heavier than before. Aurelia leaned against the wall, her hand still tingling from his touch. The stars outside her window seemed closer now, as if they were listening. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like a pawn or a prisoner. She felt like a person again. And though she knew hope could kill faster than despair, she couldn't help but hold on to it. Somewhere deep inside her, the fire that the Draxians had tried to bury began to burn again. And once humans lit a fire, the galaxy always noticed. The next 2 days passed like ghosts. Aurelia followed every rule. She smiled when told, bowed when ordered, and whispered polite words in a voice that didn't sound like hers anymore. The matron seemed pleased. Inside, she was counting hours. The guards changed every 6 cycles. Cameras blinked during maintenance. 2 vents on her level stayed unsealed. Jonah's plan might actually work, if hope didn't betray her first. That night, as the dorm lights dimmed, Aurelia sat by her desk pretending to study royal etiquette. Her mind was far away, imagining the sound of engines, the sight of stars through a cargo hatch, and Jonah's hand gripping hers as they escaped. Then a soft sound broke her thought. A whisper. A click. She turned. A panel near the wall vent shifted open, and from the shadows, another trainee crawled through, tall, slender, with pale green skin that glowed faintly under the dim light. Her hair was braided tight, her amber eyes sharp as blades. It was Mira the Los, one of the silent brides in training who never spoke unless asked. Mira, Aurelia whispered. What are you? Quiet, the alien woman said, sliding the panel shut behind her. Walls have ears. Especially here. Aurelia's pulse quickened. You shouldn't be here. I could say the same, Mira replied with a ghost of a smile. You think I didn't hear the human's voice outside your room 2 nights ago? Aurelia froze. You heard? I hear everything worth hearing. Mira stepped closer, lowering her voice. Don't worry. I'm not going to report you. Then why are you here? Because I want in. In what? Aurelia asked, though the answer already burned in her chest. Whatever escape you're planning, Mira said. I want to leave this place as much as you do. Aurelia stared at her, unsure if it was a trap. You'd risk execution for a stranger? Myra's eyes darkened. I've already lost everything that mattered. My sister was chosen as a royal consort 3 years ago. The palace sent a letter, said she was happy, honored, well cared for. Then silence. I know what that means. Aurelia's throat tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be. Mira pulled a small crystal data shard from her sleeve. It flickered with pale light. I stole this from a Draxian engineer. It holds the palace schematics, passages, security routes, and the Emperor's private transport codes. Your human will need it. Aurelia took the shard, her fingers trembling. You trust me with this? I trust that you hate this cage as much as I do. But why help humans? Most here despise them. Mira smiled faintly. Because humans are the only ones who ever fought the Draxians, and won. Maybe it's time someone did again. For a long moment, the 2 women stood in the quiet room, the hum of the station surrounding them like a heartbeat. Then the intercom crackled, and a cold, metallic voice echoed through the dorms. Attention, all trainees, report to command level immediately. Orders from Captain Morick. Myra's eyes widened. They never call us at this hour. Aurelia hid the shard inside her sleeve. What do we do? You go, Mira whispered. If they suspect anything, act obedient. I'll erase the vent record. Go now. Aurelia nodded and hurried into the hall, joining the line of brides moving in perfect silence toward the lifts. The air smelled of metal and fear. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. When she entered the command center, she saw it at once. The Draxian officers were tense, their movements sharp and deliberate. Screens glowed red with shifting code. Captain Morick stood in the middle, his scaled hands clasped behind his back. Lady HFY, he said, his voice smooth but cold. Your training has been accelerated. His Majesty's vessel will arrive tomorrow. Aurelia's heart skipped. Tomorrow, she repeated. But you said. Plans change, he cut in. You will be presented to the Emperor upon arrival. Prepare yourself. The ceremony will occur aboard his ship. The room tilted. Tomorrow meant no time for Jonah. No time for escape. No time for anything. Yes, Captain, she whispered, lowering her head to hide her panic. You are dismissed, Morick said, turning away. As she left the room, she passed another human guard, Lieutenant Carr. His cold blue eyes flicked over her, unreadable. He gave the slightest smirk before turning back to his console. She felt ice crawl up her spine. Mira was right, she thought. One of the humans is a traitor. Back in her quarters, Aurelia closed the door and pressed her back against it. Her mind raced. Jonah didn't know the Emperor was arriving early. She had to find him. She had to warn him about the new schedule and about Carr. She reached under her sleeve, feeling the edge of the data shard Mira had given her. The cold metal steadied her. Somewhere between fear and fury, she made a choice. If they were accelerating the ceremony, then she would accelerate the rebellion. The next morning never came softly. It came with alarms. The station pulsed red as sleek royal transports glided into the docking bay. Through her chamber's glass wall, Aurelia watched a fleet of black and crimson ships slide into position like blades drawn from sheaths. The Emperor of Draxus had arrived, a day too soon and far too close. Her door hissed open before she could think. Matron Ixa swept in with attendants at her heels. Up, dress, quickly. What's happening? Aurelia asked, though she already knew. You've been chosen to greet His Majesty personally. The matron's voice carried no emotion, only duty. The Emperor wishes to see what kind of woman will stand beside him. Aurelia's blood ran cold. Beside him. That meant the presentation was no rehearsal. The ceremony was happening. Today. Silk robes shimmered. Gold cuffs tightened around her wrists. Her silver hair was braided, her blue skin dusted with metallic powder until she looked like a statue carved for worship. Inside, she was screaming. Smile, said the matron, tilting her chin. You represent your house, not yourself. Aurelia wanted to say, I am not property, but the words would have cost her life. So she smiled, a quiet blade behind painted lips. They marched her through corridors lined with banners. Draxian guards stood like pillars, faces hidden beneath mirrored visors. Ahead, the docking bay doors opened with a deep mechanical sigh. The royal ship awaited, massive, predatory, and silent. And in front of it, flanked by his captains, stood the Emperor, Koro of Draxus. He was tall, broader than any human, scales like polished bronze, eyes molten gold that glowed from within. When he smiled, his teeth gleamed like cut glass. He looked at Aurelia as if examining a prize. So this is the daughter of House SYTH, he said, voice smooth, warm, almost kind. The reports did not lie. You are exquisite. Aurelia bowed low, hiding the hatred in her eyes. Your Majesty honors me beyond measure. I will decide how much you are worth, he said lightly. Walk with me. Her stomach twisted, but she obeyed. Guards fell into formation as they moved through the bay. Cameras followed, broadcasting every second to the Empire's channels. Koro spoke as they walked. Do you know why your father offered you, child of SYTH? For peace, she said. He laughed softly. Peace is a word fools use when they cannot win. He offered you for survival. She said nothing. Her silence was safer than truth. They entered a glass observation dome overlooking the stars. The Emperor spread his arms as if presenting the galaxy itself. All this will one day be yours to witness beside me. The Draxian throne does not forget its allies. Aurelia forced a polite nod, but her heart was a storm. Every step beside him felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. You are quiet, he noted. Are you afraid? Only of failing to please your Majesty, she said softly. He chuckled. A diplomat's answer. Your father raised you well. Then his gaze sharpened. But I sensed defiance beneath that calm. A spark. Aurelia froze. Do not fear, he said, almost gently. I find defiance entertaining. Before she could respond, the bay doors opened again. Captain Morik entered, followed by a human guard, Lieutenant Carr. Both bowed low. Your Majesty, Morik said, a security matter demands attention. The Emperor waved lazily. Speak. You interrupt my conversation with my bride-to-be. Carr's voice was precise. Sire, we've detained a human soldier, Jonah Hale of the Frontier Guard. He was found accessing restricted shuttle data. We suspect he planned an escape attempt with one of the brides. Aurelia's heart stopped. The air turned to glass around her. The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed. Which bride? We're investigating, Morik replied quickly. But the human refuses to name her. Koro smiled, a slow, terrifying thing. Bring him to me. I will make him speak. Aurelia wanted to scream, to run, to tear through the guards, but she could only stand there, her nails digging into her palms. Her breath came sharp, shallow. Perhaps, Koro mused, turning to her. You know this man? Her voice barely worked. No, Your Majesty. Good. His tone was pleasant again. Because liars have short lives in my court. The guards left to retrieve Jonah. Aurelia's mind raced. She had to warn him, had to stop them before they reached him. But every path was blocked by armored soldiers. Suddenly, the station shuddered. An alarm blared across the bay. Lights flickered. The Emperor looked up, annoyed. What is this nonsense? A voice came through the intercom. Unidentified vessel approaching. Weapons lock detected. A second tremor rattled the floor. Through the observation glass, Aurelia saw a small ship darting between the royal cruisers. Fast, desperate, human-made. The guards shouted orders. The Emperor's calm broke. Battle stations, he barked. Get me to my ship. Aurelia's. Pulse surged with new fear, and something else. Jonah. It had to be him. Or someone helping him. The Emperor turned to her. You will accompany me. It's safer aboard my vessel. It wasn't a request. As soldiers surrounded them, Aurelia glanced back at the chaos, smoke rising from the docking bay, alarms echoing through the station. And for the first time since her capture, she smiled. Small, hidden, dangerous. The game had changed. The Emperor just didn't know it yet. The royal ship felt alive. Every corridor pulsed with a faint, rhythmic hum, like a giant beast breathing. Aurelia walked between two armored guards, the Emperor ahead of her, his long crimson cloak whispering across the polished floor. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The air already whispered enough. The moment they boarded, she felt the temperature drop. The ship's interior wasn't built for comfort. It was built for control. Metallic walls reflected their images like cold mirrors. Even the lights seemed to follow Koro's movements, dimming when he passed, brightening when he turned. He stopped before a heavy door marked with a single symbol, a spiral within a flame. Inside, he said. Aurelio obeyed, stepping into a chamber filled with impossible beauty. The walls shimmered with translucent crystal. At first, she thought they were decorative, until she saw what was inside them. Bodies. Women of every race and color suspended in light, eyes closed, faces serene, floating as if in sleep. Each crystal pulsed faintly, as if echoing a heartbeat. Her own breath caught. What is this? Koro smiled softly, almost lovingly. Perfection. He walked between the crystal pods, running his scaled fingers across their smooth surfaces. These are my consorts. The greatest minds of a dozen worlds. Artists, scientists, strategists, all preserved and awakened when I need their wisdom. They're alive, of course. Frozen minds dreaming together, their thoughts woven into my network. Their intelligence feeds the empire itself. They dream solutions faster than machines can think. Aurelia stepped back, horrified. You've turned them into tools. I've made them eternal, he replied. Do you not see? Flesh withers. Thought does not. They serve forever. And soon, you will join them. Her stomach twisted. I'd rather die. Koro tilted his head. I'll say that. Until they see eternity. He moved closer, his golden eyes bright in the blue glow. Your father begged for your place. He knew the honor this meant. The union of our bloodlines, the binding of peace. You will lead with me, Aurelia Syth. Peace, she hissed. You call this peace? He smiled, unbothered. You call it horror. I call it progress. Empires are not built on mercy. She clenched her fists, fighting the urge to strike him. The sound of humming machines pressed on her skull, hundreds of sleeping minds whispering in silence. Her reflection wavered across a dozen glass pods. She looked like one of them already. Then, a faint vibration. The ship shuddered. An explosion echoed in the distance. Koro's eyes narrowed. They're still firing on us. He turned to one of his officers through the intercom. Seal the lower decks. Double the guard at the engine core. I will handle this personally. When he faced her again, his expression softened. Wait here, my bride. You will be safe among your sisters. He left. The door sealed behind him with a hydraulic hiss. And Aurelia was alone, surrounded by hundreds of frozen faces. She pressed a hand to the nearest crystal. The woman inside was tall and pale, her features eerily calm, as if dreaming of a life that had been stolen. I'm sorry, Aurelia whispered. I won't let him keep you here. A soft click broke the silence. A panel behind the farthest row of pods slid open, revealing a narrow maintenance tunnel glowing faint blue. Aurelia froze. Then a familiar voice called softly from the darkness. Rel. Her heart jumped. Jonah. He crawled out of the tunnel, his uniform scorched, his cheek bruised. When their eyes met, the cold room suddenly felt warm again. By the stars, he said, half laughing, half breathless. I thought I'd lost you. You almost did, she whispered, throwing herself into his arms. He held her tight, just for a heartbeat, before pulling back. No time. Myra's on the bridge. She's creating a diversion. We need to move. She nodded, but her eyes drifted to the pods. Jonah, these women, they're alive. He's using their minds like machines. Jonah followed her gaze, jaw tightening. Then we're freeing them. He pulled a small device from his belt, a flat cube of Terran tech with glowing edges. Mira gave me this. It's a system override. It can shut down whatever's keeping them trapped. But we need to plug it into the main computer core. Where is it? 2 decks up, near the bridge. Then let's go. Another explosion rocked the ship, stronger this time. Red lights flared across the chamber. The Emperor's voice boomed faintly over the comms, barking orders in Draxian. Somewhere above, metal screamed under pressure. They moved quickly, ducking through the tunnel Jonah had used to enter. The narrow passage pulsed with heat and static. How did you escape? She whispered as they crawled. Not alone, Jonas said. Lieutenant Carr, the one we thought was a traitor? He's Terran intelligence. Deep cover. He turned on the Draxians when he realized what the Emperor was doing. He's alive. For now, he's buying us time. They reached a junction where the tunnel split. Jonah checked his wrist device. Left goes to the core. Right leads to the hangar. Then left, Aurelia said without hesitation. He smiled faintly. That's the rel I remember. They crawled on, the hum of the ship growing louder, the air thick with smoke and static. Through a vent ahead, Aurelia glimpsed chaos. Draxian soldiers running, alarms screaming, fires cutting through the gold-lit corridors. And for the first time since her capture, she felt no fear. Only purpose. She looked back at Jonah, her voice steady. Let's end this. He nodded. Together. And somewhere behind them, deep in the ship, the frozen choir began to stir, faint lights flickering inside the pods, as if the women were finally beginning to wake. The corridor ahead was chaos. Red lights spun like warning eyes, painting the metallic walls in pulsing shades of blood. Smoke rolled from a cracked bulkhead, filling the air with the stench of burning circuits. Somewhere above, alarms wailed, the dying cry of a ship that thought itself immortal. Jonah moved first. Every step was quiet, deliberate, soldier's rhythm. Aurelia followed, clutching the small, override cube Mira had stolen. It pulsed in her hands, a heartbeat of blue light against her trembling fingers. They reached the junction where the tunnel met a wider corridor. Jonah peeked through the vent grill, then looked back. 2 guards, left and right. Draxian elites. Can you handle them? Aurelia asked. He smiled faintly. I'm human. I improvise. He kicked the vent open, dropped down, and moved like lightning. The first guard barely had time to turn before Jonah struck. Quick, silent, precise. The second spun and fired, plasma slicing through the air. Aurelia ducked as the bolt scorched the wall behind her. Jonah rolled, grabbed the fallen guard's weapon, and returned fire. One clean shot, the Draxian collapsed. Jonah looked up at her. Clear. Let's go. She dropped down, heart hammering. The air was thick with heat and static. Computer core is through that door, he said, pointing to a sealed hatch ahead. But we'll need an access code. Aurelia hesitated. The Emperor said his consorts were connected to the system. Maybe I can trick it. She pressed her palm to the door panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a soft chime. The lock turned green. The door slid open. Jonah blinked. It recognized you. Maybe it thinks I already belong here, she said quietly. Let's make sure it regrets that. The core chamber was enormous, a cathedral of machinery. Columns of glass and metal rose into the ceiling, their centers pulsing with data streams like flowing rivers of light. The sound was constant, like whispers layered over a heartbeat. Aurelia stepped forward, the override cube glowing brighter. Where does it connect? She asked. Jonah pointed to the central column. Right there, main processing spine. Once you plug it in, the system will try to reject it. You'll have maybe 60 seconds before it locks you out. She nodded. Then we make every second count. As she moved to the console, the door hissed open behind them. Lieutenant Carr stepped through, weapon drawn, his uniform scorched and torn. Jonah tensed, but Carr raised a hand. Easy. I'm still on your side. For now. He crossed the room, glancing around. The Emperor's on his way down. You don't have long. Then help us hold him off, Jonah said. Carr gave a grim nod and took position by the door. I'll buy you time. Aurelia placed the override device into the console port. The lights shifted. Data symbols raced across the screen. The cube pulsed faster, blue to white to red. Jonah watched the timer climb. 30 seconds. The floor shook. The door burst open again. The Emperor strode in, fury radiating from every scale. His armor was cracked from battle, molten gold bleeding from the seams. Behind him, Captain Morik limped in, blaster raised. Koro's voice filled the chamber. So, the human pest and the stolen bride. I should have killed you both when I had the chance. Jonah moved between the Emperor and Aurelia, weapon up. Funny, we were thinking the same thing. The Emperor laughed, a deep, cold sound. You think defiance makes you strong? You are ants before gods. Maybe, Jonah said, steady. But even ants can bite. Morik fired first. Carr returned fire, hitting him square in the chest. The Draxian captain fell without a sound. Then Koro moved. He was fast, impossibly fast. His blade caught Jonah's weapon, slicing it in half. Sparks exploded. Jonah staggered back, grabbed a fallen guard's sidearm, and fired point blank. The shots ricocheted off the Emperor's scaled chest. The creature grabbed Jonah by the throat and lifted him effortlessly from the floor. Human arrogance, Koro snarled. You burn bright and die fast. Aurelia turned from the console. The override timer read 97%. She grabbed a loose power cable from the floor, thick, live, sparking, and without thinking, jammed it into the Emperor's exposed armor joint. Electricity screamed through the air. Koro roared, dropping Jonah as lightning surged across his body. He struck Aurelia with the back of his hand, sending her crashing into a console. The lights flickered wildly. Jonah pulled himself up, bruised but breathing. Rel. I'm fine, she gasped. Finish it. Carr fired again, covering them as Aurelia reached for the cube. The screen turned green. A soft tone filled the chamber. Override complete, the system announced in a calm synthetic voice. Then, silence. A second later, alarms blared in a new rhythm. Across the ship, containment systems began to fail. Somewhere deep below, the cryopods hissed open. The voices of hundreds of women echoed faintly through the comms, confused, frightened, awake. The Emperor's golden eyes widened. What have you done? Aurelia rose, blood on her lip, fire in her eyes. I gave them back their freedom. With a roar of rage, Koro charged. Jonah met him head-on, tackling him toward the energy core. They struggled, human strength against alien power. The Emperor slammed Jonah against the glass tube, cracked spider webbing under the impact. Aurelia snatched Carr's dropped weapon and fired. The bolt hit the energy conduit. The chamber erupted in light. For a heartbeat, everything was white. Then the ship groaned, wounded, furious, alive no longer. Jonah grabbed Aurelia's hand. We have to go, Carr shouted from the doorway. Escape pods now. The core's going critical. They ran, smoke, sparks, chaos around them. Behind them, the Emperor's voice still echoed through the comms, roaring, furious, fading. But even his empire couldn't silence what had been set free. The corridors burned. Flames licked the walls as smoke coiled through the air. Sirens wailed in chaos, a mechanical scream that echoed through every deck. Jonah led the way, dragging Aurelia behind him, his hand never letting go of hers. Lieutenant Carr followed close, covering their backs with short, sharp bursts of plasma fire. Behind them, the great ship of Draxus, once a fortress of power, was dying. Panels sparked. Beams fell. The air smelled of ozone and fear. The pods. Jonah shouted over the noise. They're down this hall. Aurelia coughed through the smoke, her voice breaking. What about the others? They're moving to the hangar, Carr called. Myra's leading them out. She opened the lower bay locks before the system crashed. Aurelia's heart swelled with a mix of pride and dread. Hundreds of freed women, running for their lives, finding their voices after years of silence. It was chaos, but it was freedom, messy, wild, human freedom. They burst into the escape bay, a wide chamber filled with smoke and flashing lights. Dozens of pods lined the walls, their hatches half open. The sound of frightened voices and rushing feet filled the space. Mira the Los was there, waving survivors into pods, her green skin streaked with soot, her amber eyes bright with fury and hope. Aurelia, she cried. You did it. Aurelia rushed forward and pulled her into an embrace. We did it, she said breathlessly. Where's your sister? Already in a pod, Mira answered. Alive, weak, but alive. I can't thank you enough. Before Aurelia could respond, a deep metallic roar shook the bay. The far wall exploded. Through the smoke and flame, the Emperor emerged, battered, burned, but still terrifying. His armor was cracked, his golden eyes blazing with hatred. You will not take what is mine, he thundered. Mira pulled her weapon. Carr raised his rifle, and Jonah stepped forward, blocking the Emperor's path. Yours, Jonah said, his voice raw but steady. Freedom isn't yours to give or take. Koro sneered. You think you've won, human? You've only awakened what you cannot control. Without my guidance, this galaxy will fall to ruin. Then it will fall free, Jonah said. And he charged. The Emperor swung, claws slicing through the air. Jonah ducked low, grabbed a fallen beam, and slammed it into the Draxian's chest. The blow staggered Koro, but not for long. He caught Jonah by the throat and lifted him into the air. Aurelia screamed. Jonah! Carr fired, hitting the Emperor in the side. The massive alien turned, fury twisting his face, and hurled Jonah to the ground. Mira shouted, "Go! Get her out!" But Aurelia didn't move. She snatched up a plasma rifle from the floor and leveled it at the Emperor's head. "You called me property," she said. "Let me return the favor." She fired. The shot hit the same crack Jonah had burned through his armor. The blast tore into Koro's chest. He staggered, roaring in agony, but still he stood, his scales glowing with molten heat. He lunged, but Jonah was already moving. The human drove a metal rod, torn from the floor, straight into the Emperor's wound. Koro's roar became a scream as the ship's floor split beneath them, light swallowing everything. Then, silence. When Aurelia opened her eyes, she was on the floor of the escape bay. Smoke drifted upward, and sparks rained down like dying stars. Jonah lay beside her, blood on his temple, his chest rising weakly. She crawled to him. "Hey," she whispered, voice trembling. "You promised you'd come back." He gave a small, crooked smile. "I always keep my promises." Car's voice came through the intercom. "The ship's breaking apart. Launch now." Mira grabbed Aurelia's arm. "We have to go." Aurelia looked down at Jonah. He nodded faintly. "Go, Rel, get them home." She hesitated, then kissed his forehead. "You better follow me, Hale." With Myra's help, she pulled him into the nearest pod. The hatch sealed. The chamber around them filled with red light. Through the small viewport, Aurelia saw the once mighty Draxian vessel crumble under its own fire. And as their pod blasted free into the stars, the ship exploded behind them. A blinding burst of light, like the birth of a new sun. For a long time, there was only silence. Then, voices crackled through the comms. Dozens. Hundreds. The freed women, Mira, Car, all alive, scattered in escape pods, drifting through the stars but free. Aurelia looked at Jonah, who stirred weakly, his hand finding hers. "Told you," he murmured. "Humans don't quit." She smiled through tears. "No," she said softly. "They don't." The stars outside shimmered like 1,000 eyes watching history shift. The Emperor of Draxus was dead. The slaves of his mind machine were free. And among the drifting pods, a new story was beginning. One not written by empires or kings, but by those who refused to kneel. Weeks later, under the twin moons of her homeworld, Aurelia stood beside Jonah as dawn broke. Mira and her sister were organizing the survivors. Car had already transmitted proof of the Emperor's crimes to the Galactic Council. The Draxian Empire was crumbling, and worlds once silenced were finally speaking. Jonah slipped his arm around Aurelia's shoulders. "You realize," he said softly, "this is just the beginning." She smiled, resting her head against him. "Then let's make it count." Above them, the stars glittered, vast, endless, and finally free. And somewhere, carried on the solar winds, the galaxy whispered the words every empire fears. Humans don't surrender.